Beyond and hello, everyone. My name is Jonathon Dornbush. I made the bad mistake of eating a hot pepper right before the show started. That is a true fact. Lucy saw it happen.
I watched it and didn't do anything.
So now my mouth is not doing so great, but what I am is great otherwise because I'm on this show with my wonderful friends where we talk about PlayStation on IGN's weekly PlayStation show podcast Beyond. I'm joined this week by Brian Altano.
Hello.
Lucy O'Brien.
Hello.
And Max Scoville.
What kind of pepper?
That was a small yellow pepper.
I thought it was
don't
like
really know what
candy.
kind.
I thought you'd
Might
like
just
having
have
a
been like
lolly.
hot-
Why did you have it?
It came with my tacos, and I forgot to eat it when I had my tacos, so I just ate it now.
But I quite enjoyed that you turned to me and said, "I'm going to eat this pepper," and I was like, "Cool."
I like to announce my pepper eating. Before we begin talking about all the news or lack thereof in the world of PlayStation this week, I did want to bring up, as you can see on this wonderful pedestal, if you're watching the video version of the show, PlayStation was nice enough to send along to the IGN office a rose gold PS4 DualShock controller. They have those 4 new colors: purple, rose gold, another color, and camo red.
Can we open it?
Yeah, open it. Go ahead, tear it open. Of the 4 new colors, camo red would not have been my choice, so I'm glad rose gold came along. Lucy, you have a tough with rose gold. You're not a fan?
Oh, I just don't.
You want a
Like,
drum?
It looks like calamine lotion on the bottom.
I just don't like. I think it's because I was like getting an iPhone once, and the only color they had left was rose gold, and so I
okay.
was stuck with it. And I
Yeah.
was like, "That's not the color that I would have liked." And every day I had to look. I mean, I put a case on it, but I knew underneath that it was like betraying me with its color.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do like
Of the
this
new
controller.
colors, I think it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, like this is quite nice.
Why would it kill them to make one that's just like one color throughout? It
I've
drives
never
me
loved
crazy.
the two-tone thing.
It's
yeah.
just it also like if one of the colors sucks, you know.
It reminds me of Haribo gummy frogs.
If they made if they made a Haribo gummy frog colored one, I'd be all over that.
Yeah, where
That's
it's
but they
actually
didn't.
pretty great.
clear green on the top,
Yeah.
and then the bottom is like a delicious
Yeah,
cream.
or gummy sharks.
Oh,
yeah.
It'd be great.
Do you guys have candy lips, like little lips?
I've been told I have candy lips.
That's actually a very easy integration. PlayStation, if you need marketing advice, please reach out, and we'll be happy to
Yeah,
help
we
with
demand you make more gummy controllers that look like the European frog candies that we so enjoy.
And the lips.
Anyway, before we start talking more about our gummy lips and everything else, I wanted to open the show, as I always do, with my classic PlayStation icebreaker. As you all know, I open the show every week with a random icebreaker question for all of you that you answer. This is a thing we do every week, and it's not totally a brand new thing I'm doing, but intended to do when I first started taking over.
I love traditions.
Anyway,
Make me feel crazy because this has never happened.
my question
It's called
is...
gaslighting, and you'll get used to it.
Neil Armstrong comes to your house and says, "I need you to go to the moon and fight the space pirates who have kidnapped the president. You can bring 2 team members with you, and they must be PlayStation mascots. Who do you take with you?"
This is a loaded question for many reasons.
Your
That's all I
president
can
of choice.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with my president because she is not a president. She's my prime minister,
I'll take that.
Jacinda Ardern. And I probably would go to Mars to fight some aliens on her behalf. Who would I take? I would take Kratos. And I would take Crash Bandicoot for comic relief. Just to show that
to
we're
keep you
like,
entertained?
yeah, does it, because Kratos is very serious and you want some kind of like elevation there to someone to lift the mood. Because otherwise you go crazy if you had like 2,
These people are going to the moon?
Yes, you're going to the moon.
Oh, I thought we were going to Mars.
It's okay. I didn't want to correct you. You're going to the moon.
Because I feel like Kratos would like break the ship on the way up there because he'd be like, "What sort of dastardly technology is this?" And like bash the oxygen.
I think Kratos like saw a lot of crazy shit in God of War. Like I think that he took it all in his stride
He
quite
just
well.
rolls with
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
that was all sort of grounded in the world he was used to.
Yeah,
I think
but
the
I think
craziest
he's got quite an open mind, is what I'm saying.
I think the craziest thing he saw in God of War was who he really was inside.
Oh,
And who his son really was inside.
Yeah,
spoilers.
and who really we really are inside.
Well, first, the president I'd be rescuing would be William Howard Taft. He'd also be much lighter in the moon's gravity. But I would bring with me Astrobot because he's helpful, and Crash Bandicoot because I've always wanted to watch him suffocate in a vacuum.
Brian?
What?
I think I would probably try to save Trump, and then the people I would bring would be the worst people at that.
Like who? I'm just trying to think like who would be. Like Daxter, maybe.
I'm trying to think.
From Jack and
Maybe
Daxter,
like that onion cat.
Oh, he's great.
He would be bad at it.
Parappa.
Does it have to be a play? Oh, it's a shame. It has to be PlayStation.
mascots. We're on a PlayStation show.
I know, but you bring Cool Spot.
Cool Spot would be perfect to be terrible at saving a president I didn't want to
Oh my
save.
god.
What did you expect was going to happen there? Sound off in the comments below.
Yeah, let us know who you would take to save the president on the moon from
Can I
the
bring?
PlayStation
Can I
world.
bring Robert Bloodborne to the moon?
Yeah, of course.
Billy Bloodborne.
Bobborn?
Billy Bunkus. It's actually my Bloodborne
Billy Bob
character's name.
Bloodborne. Well, thank you all for playing along with that stupid question that I thought up on my walk to work today.
Sorry I said the president's name on this show.
It's fine. We'll move along and talk about the news. It didn't play.
Crunch. What candy is that advertising?
What?
The news. It just feels like
Nestle
candy.
Crunch.
Crunch Bars. This week for news, there's not a lot to talk about in the world of PlayStation. I didn't want to get into all the various small like third-party game stuff that's been going on. I did want to keep PlayStation focused this week. So I thought we'd kick it off with a question from Twitter, beyond listener or viewer. At the Eric Koval asked, do you think PS5 will look like the leaked designs that made it look like a V? And so I want to talk about the fact that we talked a bit ago, the PS5 dev kit has been out in the wild. It essentially, the designs looked like a giant square console with a V top to it. It was shaped like the Roman numeral V for 5. There have been alleged leaked photos, none of it confirmed, of course, of a real in the wild model. Of course, 3D printing is pretty good these days, so it could just be someone doing an artist rendering 3D model of that. It could be a real one, we don't know. But this model seemingly is out there, and this seems to kind of be from anecdotal stories that we've seen, some reports that we've gotten. This actually does seem to be what the dev kit is supposed to look like. So my question to all of you is, would you want the PS5 to have a giant V for 5 on the top of the console?
No, it looks stupid. But obviously, it's just that is such a dev kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way anyone would say yes to that.
It looks like an iOmega zip disk drive.
I'm torn because I think that it's not necessarily that important how consoles look, because ultimately you just stick them in your entertainment center for a few years. But I do think it helps when they're not hideous.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
if it's just like a black box with like an angle or two on it, like we've seen the last few generations, cool. But if it's just like this straight up, that is an ugly ass.
I just brought up the alleged rendering of it.
it's super unattractive. It reminds me of when that boomerang controller was kind of floating around.
Well, that was real. They showed that off.
But that was like, what? I mean, no. I mean, ugh. Like,
You know what would be a great system is that controller hooked up to the original Xbox. Just this big gaudy silver monstrosity.
there's no way it will look like that because people aren't insane.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to talk about dev kits because they are a weird thing. Like people, obviously our audience and a lot of people who are invested in this console cycle care about dev kits. One, it matters what the specs are of them because that gives us a sense of what the new consoles will be. But the look of them is often not what the console is. There are exceptions. Brian, you had brought one up before the show.
Yeah, I mean, the Nintendo Switch dev kit is basically an all-black Nintendo Switch with black buttons and black Joy-Con, which is sort of interesting because it's different than the gray one that shipped at launch. I believe there's a lot of like very sort of like almost kind of J.J. Abrams Star Wars ship design approaches to dev kits, where it's just the thing but it has one slightly different color. It's sort of like the AT-ATs in Rogue One, where they just have like an orange panel. Like there's the Xbox dev kit that's just like white, but it has like a green bar on it. Same thing with the PlayStation. I want to say the PlayStation 4 ones were very similar. I know the Nintendo Wii ones were the same thing as well. They had basically just like a slightly different colored line on one of them.
Didn't the 360 have like a big like chunky thing on top of it though?
I think so, yeah.
It's like a weird
that sounds
hat.
familiar, yeah.
Well, and I mean, often dev kits have a lot more ports in them to go on with. Like as people are testing things, there's a lot more accessibility for the devs that matters that once it goes to market, you wouldn't really need. So there's often weird structural things that can change a lot. But I did want to ask just the general question of like, why do you think people become so invested in the dev kit cycle? Like, why does that matter to people so much when it, at the end of the day, isn't the console we're likely going to get, at least visually?
I think we're sort of inherently fascinated with the kind of tangible design that comes out of video games. Controllers and hardware are some of the most popular things we cover at IGN when we're like, oh, this new special edition controller. Like those videos and articles do really well. People just have this sort of fascination with how they look. I also think it's interesting because it's essentially stripping all of the entire form versus function debate that happens with pretty much all design philosophy gets thrown out the window for dev kits because it is literally just function. Form is completely thrown away, as evidenced by, if this is even remotely real, but looking at dev kits in the past,
They're just computer towers.
Yeah.
they're just
It just
big,
looks like a compact
they're big
Rosario or
boxes.
whatever. Yeah.
We got Scott Lowe, who works at Naughty Dog now, worked for our tech channel when we first got stats on the Nintendo Wii U, and he built one based on stats, and it is this big, ugly looking thing. The actual Wii U wasn't that much more attractive. Again, just sort of very simplistic, just rectangle with rounded edges approach. But looking at what that looked like, and we have one in our, if you ever come visit IGN, we have it in our display cabinet with our trophies and stuff like that, and the money hats we got from
Next to the
various
GameCube
publishers.
controller that
Yeah.
Brian built out of clay.
out of
I love that
off
thing.
memory, yeah. And it's just this big ugly box, but it's like, yeah, hypothetically, that's the hardware of a Wii U. And so I think that like when giving people and developers ahead of time the stats of what they're actually be working with a final model, they have a tendency to ship out these giant ugly machines that are monstrosities, but they're sort of fascinating because it's sort of a beta test look at what the final consoles will look like on a consumer level. And ultimately we do get something sleeker, hopefully. But
You would hope, yeah.
it's really interesting to see what they look like before that because they're usually hideous. And I think that's sort of the circus freak mentality of like,
But people
I want to look at this thing.
Like the thing is, people are still very invested on the way their console looks. Like that is still every E3 where they bring out the console. It's like, ooh, even if it's more often than not just a box, right? But people still really want that thing to look sexy.
Well, you mentioned the iPhone thing. Like this year's model has these 3 big stupid circles on the back. And for me, I got over it in half a second. But some people were like, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, well, it's mostly in your pocket or on a table. But I think with consoles, it's like people want them to look good. Like I can't, was there ever a time where like the ugliest console won? Like it's tough to say, right? Because obviously design changes. I mean, like in retrospect, like something like the NES, we have nostalgia for it, but it's just sort of just a gray box with a flap in the front. Kind of looks like a
360
VCR.
wasn't any looker.
No, it really wasn't.
It looked cool when it first came out because it was wearing Dickies shorts and chugging Mountain Dew at the time. But like, it
Your
kinda,
faceplate, yeah.
like things kind of changed. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the faceplate thing was a really cool approach.
That's cool.
we
Yeah,
haven't really.
That's a great controller too.
Yep.
Oh, it's
triggers,
such a
yeah.
good controller.
No, I don't know. It's. I think that dev kits are cool in the same way that concept cars are, where it's like a thing you'll never get, but you're like, ooh, somebody designed that, and it's like someone else is going to retool it and make it something that actually, like, the people who do industrial design and be like, oh, here's a crazy idea, like that has to get filtered through like marketing research and like engineering and being like, this is completely impractical. We can't afford that. It's like kind of gradually it's fun in the same way that like seeing concept art for stuff is exciting.
There was also a couple years where it was positioned by PlayStation, Nintendo, and Microsoft to essentially stand your console up vertically. And I think that we all have limited space at home for how many vertical consoles we can actually have. I have like this really big, nice IKEA entertainment center that every few years I cycle consoles in and out of. And the idea of having like 4 towers lined up next to my 65-inch TV just seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
But like that's the way the Wii looked better that way, right? And the 360 I think looks better vertical. Yeah. But I don't think I think the PlayStation 4 like on a vertical stand, which you can buy. They sold those at launch.
Weren't they like $60?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like stupidly expensive. They always are for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Yes, too.
It's just a piece of plastic, yeah.
It's like, you want to buy this weird little triangle thing that's made of blue plastic? Here you go. It's
$100.
Yeah, right.
And I think putting your PS3 vertically made it look less like a George Foreman grill.
That was
But yeah, the
big
PS4's
chunky console.
Yeah.
the PS4's design is purposefully like angled when it's horizontal, and mine happens to perfectly fit like right under my TV
Yep.
with its stand, so it works out pretty nicely.
I just want to say, I know I'll probably catch some heat for this, but like I am still one of those people that gets the power button and the eject button on the PS4 mixed up. I still, every single time, I'm still like, and it's just like, I just want that. That is my, like, I've got no qualms with the PS4's design apart from that. I just want it to be for idiots like myself.
Modern design philosophy has become so flat and minimalistic that it's bordered on the obtuse. Like if you've ever been to a hotel and you can't find the remote and you want to turn a TV on, and like I got a new like 4K 32-inch monitor for my computer at work. It doesn't have a power button. Like it straight up doesn't have it doesn't have an on off button.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was a remote in the box that our IT guy threw away, but to turn it off, I just unplug it. And that's idiotic. Like we've removed all of the sort of like usefulness of stuff in an effort to make things so, I mean, phones don't have, I mean, they have like a little button on the side, but they open now from your thumb or your face.
Like Apple got bored of like one button on the front.
Yep.
Disgusting. Get it out of there.
No buttons
Well,
at
the
all.
thing you're not considering is that a lot of people with monitors that have buttons on them, they get sand caught in the button.
That's true.
And it really gets in the way of when you take your monitor to
We all work.
I bring my PS4 Pro to the beach every weekend. The other thing I wanted to mention was the PS4 and the PS4 Pro is interesting because they added essentially an additional layer to that design. And so
What's in there?
More power.
yeah.
It's
Gigabytes?
4K.
Professionalism. The 4K is
There's
in
just
there.
like a 4K upscaling emulator.
Yeah,
that's buried
There
in there.
isn't
Yeah,
a
it's
4K.
the Tower of Power.
There's no 4K video player in there though. That's not in that tower.
But the PS5 will have an extra layer.
But it is interesting to think that if these consoles are being brought forth with the sort of ideology that they will be improved upon mid-generation, then maybe whatever we're seeing and we will see at launch, we'll have to I sort of imagine what they'll look like with an extra layer.
Oh yeah, everything has an extra layer.
Yeah, because I wonder how that's
Eventually.
going to go. Because if you look at the Xbox One and the One X, and you look at the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, they're essentially just like kind of like half steps up, both in power and in design. And so I'd be interested to see. I mean, we could probably Photoshop on day one, the second we know what a PS4 or a PS5 looks like, what a PS5 Pro would look like just based on what the Pro would look like last time, which is just an extra stupid layer.
Yeah, it's an extra Oreo.
You know, here's
cookie
a
on
weird one. This is the first time we've gotten that little baby step iteration. Do you think we'll get a PS4 Pro Lite Mini?
Sorry.
Like when the PS5 is out and they want to still sell some PS4s, are they going to have like a
Like the
stripped down-
PS1 or something?
Yeah, or like the way we've currently got. There's the original PS4 and then there's the PS4 Slim. What do they call it?
They just
little-
phased it out. It's now just the
Oh,
PS4.
really?
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know if
Right.
they're ever gonna go back to doing the sort of mini light models, slim.
Yeah.
I just don't know if.
I mean, they
Well,
always,
you're-
but they always do that.
You're
Like, there's
talking about
always-
doing this though for the PS4.
Yeah, like you know how there's the little one that looks like a piece of toast. I guess the rounded
PS4?
one. Yeah, it looks like a big Apple TV.
Oh.
The baseline PS4. You can't go out and get one of those weird like trapezoid parallelogram shape ones.
Did they? Okay, right.
Yeah, if you want to
People
go,
are buying- okay,
you want to
people
go
are buying
spend.
them?
Yeah, if you want to
That
go spend $200 and get a brand new PS4, that's what you get.
Right.
Yeah, it's
I just
now-
presumed everyone just bought the PS4 Pro. And
Yeah, because you're entitled.
Well, that's
Yeah.
despicably true.
I mean, it really.
Yeah,
I think.
Mrs. I had to buy the rose gold phone.
I think it will depend on what their focus is as they launch next gen. Like, I genuinely don't know because this jump is such a weird one. If they're going to be like, let's try to straddle both gens for a little bit and see if we can support both PS4 Pro and PS5 at the same time, or if they're going to like jump ship.
They are not going to drop the PS4 user base like a
Oh,
small
I
brand.
don't
No,
think
no,
they
no,
will,
they won't.
but I mean, like, find ways to get them to PS5 as quickly as possible, or
I agree
accept
with
the fact
that.
that they just can't.
Well-
I wonder what they're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, with backwards compatibility, that it sort of muddles the issue a little bit. But I do think that the idea of having a consumer-ready entry-level PS4 2 years or a year into the next gen is incredibly enticing for them, especially with like a greatest hits library. I saw a leak from Black Friday saying that there's potential sales of up to $150 off of the current models of PS4. And that's huge. That is a huge price drop. Think about the average person who doesn't want to spend $500 on a console,
Yeah.
but wants to get in. I mean, we've talked about this for years on these shows, but like if you buy stuff on day one, like we do, you're an idiot. Like
Yeah.
The only thing you benefit from is that you're there for the conversation. But for everything else, like games improve over time, aside from like online games that lose their entire user base, but they get patched, they improve, they drop in price, they become, more accessible. There's more guides out there, all the content, all that stuff like that.
We're product testers.
Yeah, basically.
And
We're
more
guinea
often
pigs.
than not, like the first round of that technology has like a
Huge
fatal
flaws.
flaw.
Yep.
I worked at EB Games during the Red Ring of Death Xbox 360 period, and I tell ya, it was depressing. It was like 1 in 5 people brought it back.
Yeah, no, my brother and I did that thing where we like wrapped the Xbox 360 with like a towel, which is like, I don't know, chemo.
That's how you calm down
like
a
it lives
cat
another
during a
month.
thunderstorm.
Yeah. And then it
It
dies
is.
harder than ever. Like, yeah, it's
Because it was scared. Because of the horror games.
It's right.
And also too much sand in the HDMI
rough. Yeah, I
ports.
played too much Condemned.
But honestly, if there was a Slim Pro introduced like this year, because looking back, it seems like Slims were introduced like a year before the next gen, I would strongly consider buying it because my Pro sounds like a jet engine still.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
I think
Mine-
a smart way to circumvent that is like Xbox put out that SAD, the Xbox One S all digital or whatever.
Yeah.
You saw that, right?
What?
The
Yeah,
sad
they
edition.
they quietly like farted out an all digital console.
Wait,
this
so
year.
it just doesn't have an optical drive?
No.
It's called the Xbox One S all digital, aka SAD.
SAD.
It doesn't have a drive.
Does it have like a little thing in it? Like
sad face?
Does it have like a disc slot?
No,
when you open,
no.
when
That's
you turn
great.
it on, it goes, "Oh no!"
Let's see if I
So
can
it's
find
just
it.
a white-
Yeah,
it's just a white
the,
box?
It's
Yeah,
the like
Xbox one?
two-tone, like the checkerboard or like the matted
Yep.
that has. Like,
I'm
the
going to
So
be
that's
completely
like-
honest.
and the
I
white.
bought my girlfriend, my ex, one of those at the time.
Yeah.
We're no longer together.
Makes sense.
But I do think there's room for something along those lines with the PS4. If you strip out a bunch of like major functions and like sort of like things that actually bells and whistles.
There was that weird red Wii.
I was
that
just
came
about
out
to
in
look that
Canada.
up.
It was like-
Canadian Red Wii. That
like-
I have
like,
never heard of the Red Wii.
it only came out in Canada, and it
You
didn't.
guys?
No, seriously.
no, this,
No,
And it would
there
it,
it
it
is.
didn't.
this one.
Did it like not? What,
Is it,
what did
was
not
it red
do?
because it's Canadian? Is
It was like a top opening
Right.
sort of thing. I'm
Their
trying
logic
to,
was like this
they
is
they
for
stripped
your
out all of the GameCube port stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and a
that's
couple
what
of
it
other things. But it opened up like an old DVD player.
yeah.
Like it had a big flap on top.
I remember like
That's
the trying to
fascinating.
make sense of like the use case for this was like this is for people who like
the Wii Mini.
this
Yeah.
is for people who want something for their winter home where there's didn't it not have the internet or something?
Yeah, I don't. Think
I'm
it- I
looking
don't
right
think
now.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah.
It had no
it's
internet.
a very, very niche
It
market
lacks
there.
it lacks
don't you-
component, S video, RGB, SCART output, GameCube compatibility, online connectivity, the SD card slot, and Wi-Fi support.
Yeah.
And has only one USB port.
Yeah. So this
What a
this is
must-buy.
this is for like Walter White in a cabin playing Mario Kart for 8 months with a beard, eating canned
He would have
peaches,
that
like-
crappy Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer game. He would not have Mario
So
Kart.
I don't think any modern company can go that hard in removing elements, but I do think that there is room for like a $150 PS4 that is sort of removed of some of those functions.
I mean, that's the thing is we've gotten tripped up because there have been sort of two iterations of the PS4 this generation, or both consoles this generation. But like, since the original Nintendo, this has been a thing.
Yeah.
They put out that weird little one that looked like a mouse.
Yep.
And I don't know. I remember going and looking at like when the PS1 was in stores, being like, oh, whoa, there's a new Super Nintendo. That's weird. I kind of want it. It's new looking.
There's
know?
also like the kind of quieter refreshes, which is we just saw that with the Switch, which got an extended battery life and like a slightly different texture on the back. We saw that with the Vita, where they just sort of swapped in a different quality screen at one point in the system's life. And they were just like,
PS4 had that last year with it started being introduced with the Red Dead 2 bundle, I think, where it was a different power supply, which is meant to be less power consuming and quieter.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really awesome. Like those little things just sort of happen. It again sucks for early adopters.
Yeah.
PSVR, same thing happened. They did the HDMI or the HDR pass-through thing super easily for people, and I have one of those, and I'm just like,
Whether those leaks turn out to be true or not for Black Friday, though, I think if you haven't bought a PS4 and you want a great year of games, probably wait till this holiday to buy a PS4.
Yep.
'cause it'll
God,
probably
I'm
be a
so
very good
jealous of anybody who doesn't already have a PS4.
time. Yeah, to jump in
So
this
much
holiday.
great stuff to do. Oh, it's overwhelming.
I mean, last holiday it was like buy a PS4 with Spider-Man for $200. Like,
Oh God,
this fall is going to be amazing for that.
Yeah, that's going to clean up. I
so-
think NPD is going to be really fascinating this fall.
It's going to be a really interesting year, and obviously we're not expecting the PS5 alleged leaked V version to come out and be the mass-produced version, but I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they made a special edition V-shaped
and
console.
I say this towards the end of every generation, but I really, really love this part where everyone lies. Nowadays, they make like 3D printed stuff and they take photos of it in the wild. Remember that Nintendo Switch controller?
Yeah,
that was like an oval.
the mirror sort of thing, and people were like, by the way of the reflection of the window, I can tell it was fake. Yeah. It's a very strange but fun time to be talking about all this stuff, and obviously in the months to come, we'll be talking a lot. But yeah,
Do you guys think it's going to be a 5 or a V Roman numeral?
Oh,
We've never gotten a Roman
that's
numeral
true.
PlayStation number. It doesn't make any sense, but at the same time, it kind of looks like a PlayStation S if you write it with that.
It would look like
Spider-Man
a
A
S.
5
Yeah.
is just not a particularly like attractive number. It looks kind of silly.
Why?
I don't know. It's just like you think
What's
about
wrong
all
with
the
you?
other numbers. It's like it's hard to sort of make that look good.
It's kind of a frumpy number.
Yeah,
It's kind of a frumpy number.
we're
It's
actually
sort of like,
publishing.
I'm a big
We're publishing the
5.
top 10 most attractive numbers on
Why
IGN.
don't you start with this again?
to follow your top 10 numbers list.
true.
Yeah.
the sexiest.
If anyone listening or watching would like to tweet at me how you could make the number 5 look good, please
I think
do.
3 is a very. Sexy
I think you need
number.
to stop objectifying values.
3 kind of looks like the butt or the boobs or the balls.
3 is a 3 is a sexy number, whether it's like that or like the Roman one.
Tweet your best number 5 sexy fan art to Lucy at Luce O'Brien on Twitter, and to Max
Make
and
it
Brian,
filthy.
just send other numbers that are sexy.
GTA V. That is one of the best-selling games of all time. Great logo. I think I'm with you guys.
Battlefield V also used it.
The thing
One
is,
of the
no one
best-selling
calls
games.
it. No one calls it V though. That's the thing. That's why I don't think that they're going to go with the V, because it's like no one's going to say the PlayStation V.
It's true. Have you ever seen that movie 5 for Vendetta?
Anyway, moving on. That's pretty much all we're talking about in News Crunch this week, because there's not a bunch else to talk about. Instead of hypothesizing about a console a year out, which we'll do plenty in the weeks to come, I did want to talk about a game coming out in just under a month. No, it's not Death Stranding. We'll be talking about that eventually, don't you worry. But we are going to be talking about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, because Max, you didn't get to play it, but Brian, you did.
Thanks
I'm
for
tired.
reminding me.
Sorry, you guys. I'm just real tired. Brian, you got to play 3 hours.
I did, yeah.
Jedi
I was
Fallen
at a preview event in Anaheim last week. I played 3 full hours of this game, which is, I think, a lot more than I was expecting to play. This has been a really weird and interesting game to cover, because I think maybe if you had asked us 2 months ago, I would have told you that this game was getting delayed because we just hadn't heard anything about it. The marketing campaign for, let's see, I don't know, one of the biggest video game studios in the world and one of the biggest publishers in the world and one of the biggest franchises and IPs in history coming together to create this tour de force of utter silence.
It's
It's so crazy
Yeah.
because, like, especially considering, you know, this is a canonical story.
Yep.
Like, this is a massive new entry into the Star Wars story, and it's just been dead silent until now.
Yeah, it's been really weird.
They went dark after E3. We got a bit of it, but the most footage was seen behind closed doors. There was a Game Informer cover where, we just randomly learned it's kind of a Metroidvania in a way, and you have your ship and can go to different planets. There were like weird drips of information, and then we had this huge blowout. You have a full written preview on IGN. You and Ryan McCaffrey, who also got to see it, did a few convos that are on the website too.
We got video previews on YouTube as well. Just go to IGN.com or youtube.com/IGN, whatever.
I did want to start off just in a general, obviously people can go check all that stuff out, but just give us like your general overall thoughts of those 3 hours.
My overall thoughts are incredibly positive. I think I was a little apprehensive about this. I think, there's a lot of factors going in that made me, and I think probably you in the audience, a little wary about.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I think it's been a pretty great 8 or 9 years for Star Wars games. They've been
Especially
pretty solid.
single-player
Everything's
ones.
been great. No problems there whatsoever.
As a huge story-driven Star Wars single-player video game fan, things have been. I'll be completely honest. Things have been. They've been really bad.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario we've gotten over the last 9 years, I would say, is the 3-hour single player campaign in Battlefront 2. And that's not because it's the best. That's because it's the only one they didn't cancel.
What are you talking about? There was that free-to-play mobile game about cards, I think, that had a campaign.
Yeah. Exactly.
Army battalion or something.
Yeah, sure. No, it hasn't been great. I mean, they've shut down. EA has shut down all these studios. The sort of like pay to win loot crate microtransaction nonsense has gone in and out of every one of these games. I don't feel like their handling of this franchise or this license has been wonderful, really. Although I think that like if you like, piloting ships and you love like troopers on the ground blasting each other, Battlefront and Battlefront 2 have done a pretty strong, serviceable job of keeping that fight going. But I've always been a single player guy, and there's been something missing. And I sat down to play this game and I was like, I honestly don't know why they've kept this a secret, because this is really, really good. It just almost immediately surprised me in every direction at how much bigger and more interesting it was than I think that it was letting on to be, or that I was expecting it to be. I was basically given the opportunity to go to any of 4 planets from my main ship. And in your main ship, you have this sort of like ragtag crew that you hang out with. And they're great.
Oh, they're ragtag?
Yeah, they're... Sorry. I can't say that. For those who don't know, that was the code name for another canceled Star Wars.
Sorry, Amy. Anyway, but yeah, so you can go from your ship to any of the 4 planets. It's like choose your own which way you want to go, right?
Yeah, there's like 13 different things you can do in the
God
game.
damn it.
No, I'm just kidding. No. So I have a feeling a lot of those canceled Star Wars games had assets and ideas that ultimately funneled into
Filtered
this.
through, yeah.
Because this game has, to sort of break it down, it has some kind of a little bit of Uncharted Tomb Raider-y wall climbing, sliding down ice and stuff like that. All that fun, rope swinging, all that fun stuff. But it's got a lot more sort of Metroidvania. And the thing is, I couldn't really land on, we don't really have a term for this. I think it's kind of wide linear. It's not open world. It's open-ish. It's something that like Tomb Raider had sections of this, God of War had sections of this, where you basically were funneled through story beats and sort of more linear environments that then opened up into larger areas that you could kind of just mess around in. And so I was given an opportunity to jump to 4 different planets, and they didn't tell me don't go to any of them. They said go to whatever ones you want, but if you go to this one, you're going to get your ass kicked, but you can try it. Which to me is like somebody who loves Bloodborne. I was like, ooh, I want to go to the scary one. But then I was like, you know what? I'll stick to the script here. I'll go to the main one, which I believe is Dathomir for now. And it was this basically big open environment that had a lot of kind of like I would say like Bloodborne style shortcutting, which
I love.
Yeah.
And is it sort of as clever? Because
Yes.
that's what I adore so much about the Souls Bloodborne shortcuts is like, oh, okay, I see how it all interconnects now. And like I've completely got the sort of map memorized in my head because of how clever it is.
That's exactly it. It has a lot of those like kind of aha moments where like you get to a door, you go to open it, it doesn't open, you're frustrated, and you make your way all around through this level and you do all this stuff, and you open the door and it opens back up and you're like, oh, it's the beginning of the level. And so there's no fast travel within the actual planets itself, but they are sort of vast and interconnected in the same way something like Metroid Prime is. And so even pulling up your map is Super Metroid Prime. They've actually been pretty straightforward about how that's a big influence for them. And it's got that sort of like blue wireframe, like, which actually totally fits with Star Wars. It's obviously what the original arcade game looked like. And you can spin the map around and it will show you secret areas you haven't been to yet and doors that you can push open and break open. And so Cal is basically your protagonist, and he is learning Force moves basically through flashbacks and kind of retrieving his Padawan training in his head that I guess he either suppressed because...
Getting his GED.
Yeah, kind of. And I think that like he remembers stuff that he did as a kid. And so you'll flash back to points where he's like training with these like sort of this Morpheus style character who's throwing, giant balls at him and he's pushing them back with the Force. And then it comes back to you in modern times and you're like, oh yeah, like I guess I forgot I learned
all that ball training.
It's like, oh, I learned French when I was a kid, but I forgot about it. It's all coming back to me. So you start doing stuff like that. And it's really cool because it makes your interaction with the world a lot more interesting than something like Uncharted, which I'd say is like pretty linear. Like there's not a lot of backtracking in the Uncharted games. It's pretty much...
Oh, it pushes you forward.
Yeah.
Very aggressively.
No,
in a good way. I mean, I love Uncharted, but it's a different kind of game.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's a big thing right now about people comparing Marvel movies to theme parks, but like straight up Uncharted games are like theme park rides. Like they pretty much just rocket you through these environments. And like so much of the best parts of Star Wars are having these environments that you're like, I want to explore. There's clearly a world here. Like since the first movie that's always been like a very lived in universe.
Yeah.
And so many of the games are like, they kind of miss that point. And it's hard to do that with open world. So hearing that they're taking this approach is such like a perfect kind of balance of like.
Yeah. And I actually appreciate it a lot because it gives me a reason to want to go back to planets and open up places that I haven't explored yet. And by doing that, you get force points, which you can either find or you can basically build up by killing enemies. And it's straight up got those like Dark Souls, like things that, the campfires that you can sit down and pray at.
The bonfires. So I wanted to ask you about those because I read your preview. It was very good. Like do you respawn at those?
Yes. Yeah. So you respawn at those and also all of the enemies respawn.
Oh, so they do?
Yeah. And when you die, it actually has a button that says respawn and it's developed by Respawn. It's very on the nose, but I sort of did it. And so, yeah, they all respawn and you can go back and basically grind and kill them all over again.
Right.
And so I found like the combat was like pretty interesting when you're fighting just one-on-one, but when they start throwing a bunch of different enemies at you, it actually starts to get really fun. And so I had a situation where I'm fighting like 3 stormtroopers on the ground, and then these 2 giant horrible rats popped out of the back and started like eating one of the stormtroopers' legs. And then up on the hill there was a stormtrooper sniper, and there was another dude with a rocket launcher. And every time I was like, I have a perfect understanding of how to take down this group of people, rocket launcher ass on the hill would just like rocket me and one hit me from a distance. And so the cool thing about this is different than Dark Souls is that you can change the difficulty at any given moment. So if you're like, this is too easy for me, you can change that. If you're getting your butt kicked, you can change that. We had that big debate about difficulty in FromSoft games, and these guys just went in and they're like, well, yeah, if you want to play it on easy, you can, and if you want to play it on hard, you can, and you can change it.
And this is creative directors Stig Asmussen worked on the first 3 God of War games.
Yeah.
So he's got some background in making games that scale well.
Yeah, he has a really awesome sort of like action game pedigree, which I think lends itself well to this. A lot of the sort of kills that you can pull off using your lightsaber are really awesome. And I found myself towards the end of the demo mixing in a good, like basically I would use the Force to hold one enemy back and he would freeze him in place, and then I would start fighting somebody else, and that would give me a chance to sort of like catch my bearings and take on the next wave of people. And so the only thing that's kind of a bummer is that you can't decapitate people or cut off their limbs. You can only do that with droids and aliens,
Right.
which seems like a little weird to be like.
Kind of sounds like a Disney call to me.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the way that is.
You know what? I want to say that predates that. I think Lucas was like pretty straightforward. I mean, there's obviously like people getting chopped up in like Revenge of the Sith and stuff, but like you also see a droid army being the main threat, and clones who are sort of like, oh, they just get blasted, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's an interesting debate that's happening right now. I noticed that's honestly one of the biggest conversations happening around this game is that people are like more excited for it than they thought they'd be, but they're disappointed about that one aspect of it. I don't really think it's a deal breaker for me. The thing about this is that like it's a violent game. Like you'll grab stormtroopers by the throat and then stab a lightsaber through their chest. You don't see blood. And it doesn't like cauterize anything, but
it cauterizes the wound. You just can't cut people in half.
Yeah. But whatever. It is what it is. I understand why people are upset.
It's such a weird like argument, and I've like definitely like trudged through some comments to be like, what are the arguments? Like, who's angry about it? And there was like a version of Jedi Academy that had like a cheat code that allowed dismemberment.
Yeah.
But even then, it didn't have any blood because like that was still a T-rated game. There has never been an M-rated Star Wars game, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's never happened because it's always been sort of a family-friendly concept.
Star Wars has always been
for 12-year-olds,
family-friendly universe, and I don't see anyone deviating from that anytime soon.
It's true.
I just have a quick question because you sort of talked about how like there were some similarities to the Souls series, similarities to God of War insofar as it's like, what are we calling it? Wide linear?
Yeah. Openish.
What I liked hearing about that and what intrigues me is it kind of like in God of War and the Souls games where if you kind of go off the beaten path a little bit, you'll like stumble across an enemy that's maybe way more advanced than you can handle at the time, And it's also kind of like a breathtaking
Yep.
kind of like, oh, okay, got a bit of back away and like come back and tackle that in a more prepared way. But in that regard, it also makes that world feel way more like it always existed.
Yep.
And, you just happen to be there rather than the world catering to you.
I saw a little bit of that, and I really hope we see a lot more of that, because that's honestly one of my favorite things in Bloodborne is on that first street with 40 dudes. Before you get to that street, there's that alleyway with that one like sledgehammer.
We all
Husky
know
goth
that
guy.
opening. We all know that opening of Bloodborne so well,
Right?
Because we all played it like 45 times.
And all of us were like, I can take this guy, and none of us could.
Yeah.
I mean, except for like, some streamers out there who are like the best players in the world. But there was like there was a little bit of that, and I really hope there's a lot more of that. What was interesting about the planet that I went on is that it had essentially an entire Zelda dungeon in the basement of it. Like there was all this stuff where I was like moving these gigantic spheres using the Force, and I had to do it with 3 different ones, and they're basically it felt like incredibly Tomb Raider. Like when you're playing those really smart tombs that sort of just start to click.
Yep.
And they open up all these doors and hallways. And by doing that, I opened up this entire, like what felt like an optional area underneath that had a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And I didn't even scratch the surface. Like I thought in 3 hours I'd be able to 100% this planet, and I didn't. So I'd imagine it's going to take about 4 or 5 hours to do each planet, maybe more than that. And there's 4 planets, so you're looking at a pretty meaty game to 100%.
There are 4 planets total. Is that confirmed, or is it?
So far, yeah.
Okay.
If there's a 5th, maybe we don't know yet, but we do know about 4. And so you can go back to your ship at any point and hop to any of them. And I saw like a cool side quest with your dude Greasy, who's like this 4-armed like weasel monkey rat man, very Star Wars. And he's got this like kind of Danny DeVito voice, and he's like, "Hey, go out there and get me some stuff, will you?" He's great. And so he's got these like weird plants on his ship, and
Does he
he's like,
smoke?
he looks like he eats cigarettes, and he sounds like he eats cigarettes. But he's sort of like this, like he's got like a botany side quest where you can go to these different planets and find seeds and then grow them aboard your ship, and it's sort of to preserve the wildlife around, because it's not just about like the Empire is destroying everything; they're also wrecking planets, and there's like this weird Captain Planet element to it, which I really dig. So yeah, this game's out in a month. It's like I keep saying, it's bigger than I thought it would be. It's more fun than I thought it'd be.
I love that you're getting a sense of what the game actually is, because it's been one of those, like, I've been cautiously optimistic about this game and want it to be great, but it's been so strange that they've hidden it.
Yeah.
After playing all that, I know you mentioned sort of like the concerns over the way the lightsabers would work with people. Was there anything else since, your preview coverage has been out? Have you noticed any other like concerns people may have had, or any concerns that you had after playing?
I mean, the number one concern is EA. The number one concern is people being like, I even wrote it in my preview. I'm like, McCaffrey and I in our convo were like, they haven't canceled this game yet. They still might. I mean, it just went gold, but you never know. Which, by the way, when a game goes gold, that's basically like just so they can print discs. Like we could all be playing that game digitally right now.
Going gold is a much different thing these days.
It's very
than it
different
used to
nowadays,
be,
but it's for those physical collectors. But no, it's people apprehensive that EA is going to, at the finish line, just sort of like riddle this thing with pay-to-win microtransactions, loot boxes.
Which we know. I mean, surely not. That was such a debacle for EA.
Yeah.
Well,
like
it's been part of their marketing campaign for this game.
It's like no.
Yeah.
Respawn from the start, and I've interviewed these guys a bunch leading up to this, have just been over and over hammering this thing that they are not doing anything like that. I have a feeling if they do add single player DLC at some point, that'll be like a story driven thing. But I asked Stig early on, I was like, did you guys ever write the word multiplayer down on a whiteboard anywhere? And he was like, no. Like, this is not about that. This is not about like being better than this is a story driven game. This is a canonical story.
Sometimes like awesome things like this can be born out of terrible mistakes.
Yeah. I think so.
I mean, I had this misconception with this game from day one. Like, I think my expectations were initially pretty low, just in the basis that like they're like, yeah, Respawn is making a Star Wars game with the God of War guy, and I was like, oh, that's the company that made Titanfall, which is a multiplayer game, making a combat-based game in a series that, I mean, God of War again is the originals are like fairly linear. You kind of stick to one path, and even going into this, when he told us at E3 like point blank, like this is a Metroidvania, I was like, oh. I have a hard time believing that. And like that was after playing the Titanfall 2 campaign, which I loved.
Yeah.
But again, even that was fairly straightforward.
It was
and
pretty
like,
linear.
The whole thing is like I just want to explore the Star Wars galaxy. Like I want to jump around in that world and have like a reason to backtrack a little bit and find little nooks and crannies and collect things and really just not just be sort of on a ride through that world. I want to like
You want to
I
explore.
want to hang out
think,
there.
I think that like the RPG elements, the sort of Dark Soulsy like pray at the bonfire, respawn enemies, and beat them up and grind to get skill points, is inherently something that lends itself to kind of like hanging out in the world for a long time, instead of rushing through
I
it.
want to fight those rats.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you said in your preview really excited me because, I am way more invested than in the world building, I suppose, than the action. The action is great, but like for me, I'm just really intrigued to explore a universe that is very cohesively Star Wars. And one of the things that you said in your preview that like got me really fired up was that there's a kitchen in your ship where you can just like hang out and like there's all like Star Wars food.
Yeah, there's just like weird like icky dragon fruits and like goop.
Yeah, and I love that. Like it's little things like that really make a video game world.
I really dig all that. There's also like I found like lightsaber parts and like there's going to be a customization element to it. Like I found this weird diagonal poncho that's very Mandalorian, and it's like you can wear it on your character. I got a skin for my droid. Like I think a lot of that gets lost. Again, I love Uncharted, but I've said this so many times in the show. One of the things I don't like about those games is that you have no connection with your weapon. Nathan Drake just picks up guns and drops guns and picks up and there's no like. You don't build on them. And the thing I do like about stuff like God of War and Tomb Raider is that you have weapons, especially God of War, right? You have that axe and you can upgrade it and you can.
There's a sense of ownership.
Yeah. And so
it's your thing.
I think having Cal's lightsaber be this thing that kind of grows along with your journey, along with you learning force moves through the skill tree, is going to make it for a really like fun, interesting thing that you're going to want to spend some time in. So yeah, I'm all for this game.
But what if for just 99 cents more, you could get a new droid skin?
That's true.
But before we jump off from that, I do want to ask, just as we head into the end of the year, it's been a strange year where I think a lot of us all have. I think if I asked each person at this table to name like your current game of the year prospect, there might be a little bit of overlap, but like top 3 or top 5 may be wildly different this year for a lot of people. How are you feeling going into this game now that you've seen a few more hours? Do you feel like it may be something we'll be having conversations about at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think it absolutely will. I couldn't tell you right now like what we would give it score-wise.
Sure,
I'd be floored if it dropped below an 8 because it seems like it's doing all the right things right now. But that said, things could change. Maybe the back half of it's terrible or amazing. Who knows? But I will say that it is sort of like scratching that itch that I was missing this year, which is like a big single-player, story-driven video game. Like I think Sekiro came close. Resident Evil 2 was awesome, but also very familiar. Something I'd kind of already experienced already. And this feels kind of like it's kind of going to be like this year's God of War for me.
Oh, that's cool.
Obviously, with I don't think the story will make me cry like that game did, but I think it'll be up there.
I don't know. Star Wars makes you cry a lot.
It does.
That's true.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a weird time. Like we just got tickets for Rise of the Skywalker. We're both huge, big Star Wars dorks. Mandalorian literally looks like the most tailor-made for me thing ever, and my Star Wars hype has like never been lower. So I'm kind of hoping that whichever one of these things I come across first, I like wind up being like, oh, there it is. There's those feelings, and just if it's Christmas break and I'm fighting rats on Dathomir with a lightsaber, then that would be kind of cool.
I kind of went into this fall being like, oh, I'm no pun intended lukewarm about a lot of the Star Wars stuff, but I think it's going to be cool, to being like, oh, individually, I love the new movie trailer. Mandalorian looks awesome. Everything I played from this game is really good. This could be actually a pretty fun couple of months for Star Wars fans.
Yeah. It's very exciting to see, and after all the weird quietness, I'm glad that they let you guys see so much, and it sounds pretty great. That game comes out November 15th, though given it's EA, there may be one of those weird EA Origin Access 5-day early 2-hour bonus things you can do.
What is a launch day anymore?
Yeah, and all of it's fake. But we'll be playing it very soon, and I'm very excited about that. Before we keep going, question for you guys, how are we doing on time for all of you? Does anyone have a meeting they must attend?
Do this. We gotta go shoot the thing in a minute, but
We'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
All right. I can hold off. I have some viewer questions. We can hold those maybe for like a viewer question episode down the road. What do you guys want to do? I'm just
Whatever you
freeballing right now.
I'm here
Fine.
for you.
Let's jump into these 3 viewer questions that I brought. These are our viewer and listener questions from Twitter. Thank you to everyone who wrote in. We'll definitely use some more of those in the weeks to come. First one is from @Tivokio, or Tivokio. Which video game, you can answer any of these, which video game has your favorite title screen music, or which is your favorite video game OST of all time? This person said, my favorite title screen is Oblivion. I'll never forget how hyped I was the first time I heard that fanfare.
For me, it's Final Fantasy VII title screen music.
Okay.
Burned into my brain.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear it, it's like, that incredible nostalgia, like, that's the noise I make every time, actually.
I think there's like something really hauntingly beautiful about The Last of Us's title screen. The music is not really anything like to write home about because I think it's kind of non-existent, but there's this weird sort of windowsill with sun coming in, but it's also sort of haunting.
Oh, yeah.
Which I really love.
Yeah. God, I remember that. And the way the little things catch the light.
Yeah, light particles like flickering. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
I think my favorite OST across any video game series would be Silent Hill. I just think that is a weird OST. Like, but it's so it's like so clangy and haunting, which is like the best way I can describe that series as a whole. Like, it's very jarring, but it's also very terrifying.
Oh, the Bloodborne title screen is amazing because it's the hunter staring off into the nightmare world while like swelling orchestral stabs dip in and out. Like it's creepy as hell, and it makes me want to go kick some ass and die a lot.
Yeah.
God, I'm trying to think like title screens that I've left up long enough that I have in mind. I want to say Skyrim. I'm trying to remember if that has like the
Isn't it just monks like?
Is it okay? Then I don't like that.
I presume that every
The Skyrim score is pretty kick ass with all the dragon shouting and nonsense. That's like one of those. I mean, I played so much of that game that like you can like hear cues of it. Weirdly, I have the same attachment to Final Fantasy VII, but like I never beat that game. I just was over at my friend's house while he was playing it constantly. So that's like kind of etched into my nostalgia too. Where I'm like, I'd be in the corner like drawing in my sketchbook, and he'd be like, playing that. I guess like the Metal Gear Solid title screen is pretty good. It's got this kind of like
I can hear it.
Yeah. And then if you hit the triggers, it makes gunshot noises for some reason.
Oh, that's great. The 2 title screens for me, I mean, all title screens should do that. The 2 title screens for me that stand out the most, to be very on brand, Kingdom Hearts. But it's like, I think part of my love of that game is how nostalgic I am for the piano line that plays on the main intro screens. It's called Dearly Beloved. It's a really good piece of music, and so I love that, even though the title screen is just very simplistic. And then also Crash Bandicoot, because that theme is etched into my brain as like the immediate, like the ramp up of sort of
kind
all
of stressful. The Crash Bandicoot,
it like comes in real
fine,
quickly.
I'll play you. I'll play you.
And it's like, you gotta go. Come on. Those 2 for me really stick out. Moving on from that one, Kokiri the Kid asked, "What's in Max's pocket?"
Oh, I got a good one for you.
Ooh.
Today. I actually did not plan this. This was in my pocket already when I came to work. Okay, it's a golden 3D printed pig.
Oh.
The legs broke off of because I'm bad at 3D printing.
That is so
And
on brand.
it's actually a specific pig. I don't know if you've seen the pig poop balls picture.
Yes.
The famous picture of the pig that poops on its own balls. Well, I 3D printed that.
Did you find a plan for him online?
I found a 3D model of a pig, and then using the spheres and the cylinder shapes, I added the balls and the poop myself.
What program?
It's a website called Tinkercad.
Okay.
I just went on there, started tinkering around with some CAD files, and
This
now
I'm sorry, this is the most on-brand thing that could ever be in your pocket.
The golden hog.
It's amazing.
You can't beat this. Like, this is all time. Like, what's in Max's pocket? It's a 3D printed pig with giant balls and some, like,
And this
poo.
wasn't planned.
That is
When you showed me that this
amazing.
morning, you didn't tell me about the balls.
You didn't look at
You
the
didn't
balls?
look at the
That's
giant
first,
balls?
That's how you know if it's a sow or a hog, my friend.
Get those out of my face.
I'm going to make sure they're directly in your face.
This is my rose gold controller.
Thank you, everyone who wrote in with your questions. We'll answer some in the weeks to come. I'm going to hold off on a new segment for next week just because we're a little short on time, but we will get into that very soon. I do want to wrap up with a memory card, so I'm going to find that music. So I'm going to play it one more time. There we go. Anyway, Memory Card is our weekly segment where you, the listeners and viewers at home, write in with your funny, sad, happy, weird, whatever memories of your PlayStation and gaming life, and we read those on the show each week. If you'd like to write in your story, and please do, we're starting to run a little bit lower than we once were on stories, so please write in if you have one to share. You can write into beyond@ign.com with the subject line Memory Card, and we'll read them each week on the show. But this week's story comes from Ryan. Ryan said, "Hey, Jonathan and the Beyond crew, I hope this is okay, but my memory card starts well before the PlayStation era," and I'm counting it because I thought it was a sweet story. "In my experience, video games have been generational. I started playing games on the NES with my grandparents and my youngest uncle. We could never beat Super Mario Bros. 3, but we had the first few levels memorized very soon. There was even one night I spent the night at my grandparents' house, and I stayed up at night playing a season of Tecmo Super Bowl with my uncle as the Buffalo Bills, only to lose in the Super Bowl to the New York Giants, which happens to be the same year that happened, ironically enough. That same game and other sports games were what helped me bond with my stepdad after my parents split and my mom remarried. I played games like Streets of Rage with my brother and dad on weekends when we visited with him. This eventually brought us to the PS1 where my dad got Diablo, and that was the only game he played for many years, maxing out every playable character. He doesn't play games anymore, but a couple years ago I showed him The Witcher 3 and it piqued his interest, but he said he wouldn't want it because he knew he would get sucked in and not do anything else. Now I'm a single father who also sees his son on the weekends, and while I do take my son outside and play catch and take him to the beach and other outdoors stuff, we also like to stay in and play video games. Fortnite is his current favorite, and I'm so thankful for crossplay so that he can play on the Switch while I play on the PS4. He's also really gotten into fighting games lately, so games like Injustice 2 and Tekken 7 have brought us joy and frustration. He's 7 years old and has a few online wins under his belt. Video games have kept us connected, and I only hope this for entertainment can continue to help us grow together. P.S. Max, you're a great host. Don't let anyone tell you differently. And I agree.
Aww.
Anyway, Ryan, thank you so much for writing in and telling us the story of your life and your family's history with gaming. We really appreciate it. If you want to write in with your family's history or anything else you have funny, weird, or happy or sad or whatnot to tell us. Yes.
I have a request for Ryan. Ryan, if you're listening, can you have your son explain the plot of Tekken 7?
I'll happily take that in. Please write in, Ryan, to beyond@ign.com and explain the plot of Tekken 7. Is it weird?
I don't know if the creator of Tekken.
Who are these pandas and tigers? What are they doing out there?
I think they're just
Kicking ass.
Why are they kicking each other's asses so much?
There's so many of the A words I have to bleep.
You have to bleep the A word?
I
To
might.
bleep the A word?
Bleep the A word? No, you don't.
I don't know.
An ass is a donkey.
You don't mean it that way. Anyway, moving on. Thank you so much for writing in. Again, beyond@ign.com with your memory card stories. Want to wrap up very quickly because we haven't done it in a few weeks with a trophy test.
Yeah.
This week's trophy test is trophies based on Medieval, which comes out this week.
I've got this one in the bag.
Comes out the 25th.
I platinumed that this weekend.
Oh, really? Well,
No.
let's see if you know these trophies. For those who don't know Trophy Test, I have come up with one fake title for a trophy, and I will read the description of the trophy and then give my wonderful co-hosts the real and fake title in a random order. They must tell me which is the real trophy title. And we will begin as I write down your initials. The first trophy, defeat 30 enemies with the sword spin attack. Is that Dizzy Decimator or Spinning Slayer? Defeat 30 enemies with the sword spin attack.
Spinning Slayer.
Spinning Slayer.
Dizzy Decimator.
Lucy, you're correct. It is Dizzy Decimator.
Okay. Well, now I know where these are going. They're verbose and wordy and unnecessarily cornball. So let's rock.
All right. Die seven different ways. Is that Deathly Smorgasbord or Deathly Buffet?
Deathly Smorgasbord.
Deathly Buffet.
I'm also going to go with Deathly Buffet.
Brian, you are correct. It is Deadly Smorgasbord.
All right.
Moving on to trophy number 3. Kill something with your own arm.
That's like every video game.
Mostly armless or lend a hand.
Oh. It's just like one is
That's where they got us.
one is really good and one is dumb, and it's like, okay,
Lend a hand.
You say it's lend a hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lend
Lucy?
a Handleton.
I'm gonna try and trick you.
I almost said the exact same thing. What the hell is wrong with us?
Mostly armless.
Mostly armless?
Mostly armless.
Max, I'm sorry. It is not lend a hand. It is mostly armless.
Don't ever apologize to me again.
It did give us Linda Hamilton or whatever you just said.
That was worth it. Moving on to trophy number 4. The current rankings are Brian and Lucy, you have 2 points. Max, you have 0. Sorry. Moving on to trophy number 4. Destroy 100 gravestones. Shocking lack of respect or can't rest in peace.
Shocking lack of respect.
I like that one.
I like that one, so I'm just going to go with it, even if it's wrong.
Me too.
You're all correct.
Yay!
Cool. I have a point.
Moving on to the fifth, I have 6 in total. Number 5, drink 32 health vials. Partaker of the potions or partial to the potions?
Partaker.
Partial.
Partial.
Brian, I'm sorry. It is partial to the potions.
Jonathan, I hate you. That's not
What
true.
else is new?
Hey.
I'm kidding. Anyway, moving on to the final trophy. Lucy, you have 4 points. Brian, you have 3. Max, you have 2. Max, you can tie it for second place.
Okay.
The final trophy is Kill the Serpent of Gallowmere. Is it, if it slithers, I slays. I didn't missay that. If it slithers, I slays. Or if it hisses, I hits it. I didn't want to mispronounce either of these.
Slither Slayer.
Slither slays.
Hits and hiss.
Max and Lucy, you're correct.
Damn
It
it.
slays. And I
knew they
adjust the
were, too.
scores.
You
Yay,
made
and the
other
winner.
one?
I made up if I hisses.
It's really bad.
Thank you.
But I fell for
That's
it.
what I tried. Lucy, you won the gold trophy this week.
Thank you.
Max and Brian, you have settled both for a silver trophy in second
right.
place. Congratulations to you all. We'll tally up
We
all the
call that
votes.
Kiwi gold.
Do we?
I've made that joke so many times, and it's very
Here, you've won
specific
this
to the
Kiwi
Southern
gold
Hemisphere.
controller.
Kiwi Rose Gold. Thank you all so much for playing. I hope you enjoyed playing along at home. Of course, this is IGN's weekly PlayStation show. We're going to wrap it up there. Episode 612 of Podcast Beyond. When we are not recording the show, we are, of course, on IGN.com, YouTube.com/IGN, and all of IGN's social platforms. So please check out everything we've been making and doing. Do you guys want to highlight anything recently you've been working on? Brian, you had your Star Wars preview, of course.
Yeah, go check all that Fallen Order stuff I did.
Please check out our revamped top 100 best games of all time list, because it was a process.
It was. Max?
Go check out the part I wrote about Metal Gear Solid on the top 100 list, and hang tight for more things about stuff that we're all working on.
Very true. And if you didn't heed our words last week, go watch Max and Brian's great new AI news show.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that, of course, you can find us on Twitter. Brian is at Agent Bizzle. I am at JM Dornbush. Lucy is at Luce O'Brien. And at Max is at Max Scoville. So many ats and as. Of course, Beyond is live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific at beyond.ign.com, youtube.com/IGN and your favorite podcast services around the world. Please rate, like, subscribe, give the thumbs up. I don't know what you do on Spotify. But anyway, thank you all so much for listening and watching this episode. And as always, Beyond.
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 What do you think the sexiest Roman numeral is? It's 30.
It's I.
It's
30.
It's V.
No, it's 30.
Think about it.
No, it's triple X. It's
Yeah,
30.
he got it right.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Bye.